Today I'll be talking about things you can do with an old computer. The first thing you could do is you could turn it into a file server and just leave its original operating system on there. And you could just disable the internet function on it. So the computer can't hook up to the internet, but you can just have it have other computers in your network see it, and you can just use it as a file server, so you can send files to it and use it as a storage device. That's one of the uses you can use with an old computer, and it depends on the age of the computer. So let's say the computer is a Core 2 Dual based computer, which was produced around 2007 or 2008. Such computers can support hard drives as large as 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes or whatever, anywhere from, let's say, 500 gigabytes to 2 terabytes. And you could basically use it as a file server. You could mount several hard drives on it, and you could send files to it and retrieve files from it, and basically it'd be a pretty nice file server. That's one of the uses you can use for an old computer. The next thing you could do with an old computer, if you live in the United States, you could donate it to the Salvation Army and get a tax write-off for it. So you just write down the value of the computer. Let's say the computer value is $200 or something. You would write that down, and then next time you do your taxes, you can get a tax write-off for $200 for that computer, or whatever the computer's worth. It's better than trying to sell it on eBay or Craigslist or anything like that, because it takes a lot of time to sell. It takes a lot of time to sell a computer or sell anything on those platforms. You have to take pictures of it. You have to, of course, write description about the computer, the condition, and if you sell it on eBay or something, there's also the cost of shipping. So shipping such a large thing would cost you anywhere from $50 to $100 to ship a computer, and it's definitely not worth it trying to sell it on eBay or Craigslist. For Craigslist, you can just sell it. You could just post an advert on it on Craigslist, and if people are interested in it, they would come and buy it from you. But it takes time to do that, so if it's just a hassle, then it's better to just donate it to like the Salvation Army or somewhere like that, and just get a tax deduction. And yeah, that'd be the best thing for you to do. Because some people just don't have the time to do all of that stuff, and maybe these computers are old office computers. They own like a business or something. They may have like anywhere from 5 to 30 computers in their office, and or a business. And the best thing for them to do would be to just put it all on a truck and send it to the Salvation Army and just donate it and get tax deductions off of it. And the next thing you could do with an old computer is, depending on how old it is, let's say the computer was produced around 2005 to maybe 2009. Such computers wouldn't be very good to use for like on modern operating systems like Windows 10 or something like that, or probably the latest distro of Linux, which requires very high hardware requirements. So those computers can be used as a dedicated emulator. So they have a emulator called the Batocera emulator, which turns your entire computer into a kind of like a RetroPie thing. So you would just get the image from Batocera's website, and then you'd use Etcher, and you'd you copy the image of the Batocera file or image onto a USB flash drive, and you could boot off the USB flash drive, and that would be your emulator. So it has various emulators on it. It has an arcade emulator. It has a NES, Nintendo Entertainment System emulator, Super Nintendo emulator, Sega Master System, PlayStation, Genesis, Game Boy Advance, Atari 7800, Atari 2600, Game Boy Color, PC Engine, TurboGrafx, Nintendo 64, Sega CD, Vectrex, Game Gear, VirtualBox, Atari Lynx, Neo Geo Pocket, SuperGrafx, NEC SuperGrafx, Odyssey 2, Amstrad CPC, Atari ST, Sinclair, ZX81, Sinclair Spectrum, Dreamcast, PlayStation, PSP, Commodore 64, and all those other emulators. You may not be able to emulate all of those. Maybe you'll have a problem emulating N64 on a 2005 based computer. But you could definitely run the other emulators on a dedicated emulator device with a USB device like the Batocera or a Recalbox, which is the same thing as Batocera, except Batocera enables you to install that software onto a hard drive. So Recalbox doesn't enable you to do that, but it's basically the same thing as Batocera. It turns your computer into something like a RetroPie, x86 or x64 based computer. So RetroPie is it's ARM based. It uses an ARM based computer, which is called a Raspberry Pi 4 or something, a Raspberry Pi. So RetroPie is based on the Raspberry Pi platform. That's basically what it is. And you could use one of those two options if you wish, and you should be able to turn your old computer into a dedicated emulator machine. Or you could install standalone emulators like different versions of Mame, Nestopia, which is a Nintendo Entertainment System emulator, Strela, which is an Atari 2600 emulator, Applewin, which is an Apple II emulator, DOSBox 0.74, which is an emulator that emulates MS-DOS based programs, probably from 1981 to 1993 or something. The Handy emulator, which is Atari Lynx based emulator, Rain emulator. This emulates Taito arcade games, and there are many more. You could use it as standalone emulator. And there's more options for using standalone emulators than using Batocera or Recalbox. and that's definitely possible. You're probably not going to be able to emulate PlayStation 2 on an old computer, or PlayStation 1 or whatever, or Dreamcast. It's probably not going to happen. It's not going to have the computing power to do that. You could play old games on it, like old DOS games, Atari 2600 games, Atari 7800 games, Nintendo Entertainment System games, Genesis games, Sega Genesis games, Mega Drive games, TurboGrafx 16 PC Engine games. And DOS games, probably up to 1993 base MS-DOS games. So that's what you could basically use a old computer for if you want to use it as an emulator. So you could also use your computer, your old computer, as a retro computer. For example, let's say you had a computer that was made in 1995 or something. It would probably have a Windows 95 operating system on it. Therefore, you can play Windows 95 games or run Windows 95 programs on it. So that would be a very good computer to use to play retro Windows 95 and Windows 98 games. So any computer made from 1995 to, let's say, 1999, or let's say 1995 to 2000 would be a very good retro computer for playing Windows 95, Windows 98, and Windows 98 games. So that would be one of the options. Or if you had a computer that was produced from let's say 2001 to 2005, that could play some Windows 98 and 95 games, and it will definitely play every game that was produced from 2000 to 2007. So it would play Windows 95 games, some Windows 95 games, some Windows 98 games, every Windows XP or Windows Vista based game. So that would be an option for it. So you don't have to throw it away in the trash can. It could still have some use for it, and people will pay good money to buy retro computers like this. Let's say you had a Pentium 2 based computer with Windows 98 on it in perfect condition with, let's say, a 3DFX Voodoo 2 or a 3DFX Voodoo 3 based video card or 3D accelerator in it, in very good condition. You could probably sell this for maybe $500-$600. Somebody will buy it, you know. Those computers are rare, so you don't have to throw it away. You can sell those on eBay or whatever, and it would definitely be worth it, even if you have to pay a shipping cost of anywhere from $50 to $100. Or you could use it as a retro computer yourself if you are interested in playing such old retro games. But that's another option. So another option is, the last option is, you can install a less demanding distro of Linux. So basically, let's say you have a computer that was produced from 2006 to 2008, and these computers would probably be a Intel Core 2 Dual or a Intel Core 2 Quad based computers, or you would have a AMD Phenom 1 AMD Phenom 2, AMD 64 X2 based computers. So those computers can still be used even if they can't use the latest version of Windows, which is Windows 10, and Windows 10 does have very high systems requirements, and it would be very slow to use Windows 10 on such computers. But however, you can use a less demanding distro of Linux. You could use maybe Linux Ubuntu. You could use Linux Mint or other distros of Linux on it, which you can still use as a functional computer in December 28th of 2019, which I have done on a video that I created earlier, where I turned a Intel Core 2 Quad Q6600 based computer into a Linux Mint based computer. So I installed Linux Mint x64 version on that computer, and I'm able to go on the internet. I'm able to stream videos. I'm able to send files to that computer using Windows 10, other Windows 10 computers, and basically it's perfectly functional. So if I want to use that computer to purchase something on Amazon, or if I want to purchase something on eBay or any other website, I can do that as well. It's functional. I can check email on that computer. I can basically do everything I need to do on it. If I want to watch a DVD movie, I could do that as well. So I didn't have to throw away that computer. I didn't have to do any of that. I didn't have to sell it. I'm just using it in a room in my house. You know, a guest can go into that room and use that computer, basically. And yeah, it's perfectly functional, no problems whatsoever. So those are the possible uses you can use a old computer. So you don't have to basically throw it away or destroy it or anything like that. You know, there are uses for these old machines, basically. Okay. Thanks for watching my Ace 1000 KS 1975.